प्रेजेंटेड बाय ईबिक्स कैश, हर खुशी के लिए काफी है।
Good evening and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Let's take you through the headlines tonight. Exclusive and live reports from Washington, D.C. on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big meetings with top American CEOs. Talks expected to boost trade and investments. Markets on fire after the U.S. Fed decides to hold rates. Sensex zooms 958 points, Nifty up 276 to end at 17,823. Real estate stocks lead the march. Paris Defense IPOs subscribed a massive 304 times. A dream listing for Chennai-based tech company Freshworks on the Nasdaq. Stock rises 32% on the first day. 500 employees turn crorepatis overnight. Google drags the Competition Commission of India to court. Protests against the leak of a report probing allegations of unfair trade practices. And Business Today TV unboxes an iPhone 13 just for you. Get to know the first impressions and whether or not you should upgrade. Prime Minister Narendra Modi began his first full day in Washington, D.C. with a packed schedule of meetings with 5 top U.S. CEOs. The first to visit the Prime Minister in the U.S. capital's Willard Hotel was Cristiano Amon, the CEO of Qualcomm. Next in line were Adobe's Shantanu Narayan, Mark Widmar of First Solar, Vivek Lal of General Atomics and Stephen Schwarzman of Blackstone. The meetings began at 7:15 p.m. India time and Prime Minister Modi met each CEO for around 15 minutes. According to sources, each company was selectively kept in mind and chosen as per the kind of investments, both technical and financial, they could possibly choose to make in India. The visit becomes all the more important, keeping in mind that this is Modi's first meet with the US industry after COVID. It's also the first meeting after the government scrapped the much-aligned retro tax law and announced big bang telecom and banking reforms. The meeting also takes place amid heightened tensions with China and after the exit of 2 big American companies, Ford and Harley-Davidson, from India.
We talked about was, continued investment in innovation, because he certainly believes that technology is the way to help move things forward. Specifically, we talked about artificial intelligence and what might happen with artificial intelligence. We talked about creativity, the importance of creativity and how media, the ever-changing nature of media. We talked about online.
We talk about many things that are very relevant, I think, to what we think about the future of technology. We talk about the 5G and acceleration of 5G. We talked about incredible opportunity to advance the industry not only domestically in India, but India as an export of technology as we think about the digital transformation enabled by 5G combined with the design in India.
So there are a lot of potential areas of collaboration that we are in discussions with. I think writ large U.S. companies and many of my colleagues at U.S. companies see India as a very promising destination from a two-way standpoint, not only technologies and investments in, but coming back to the U.S. So I think it's a win-win. The policies and reforms that have been put in place by both countries.
I had already invested $60 billion in assets in India, and over the next 5 years, we're planning another $40 billion of assets for one of the 10 largest companies in India.
Clearly, with his leadership and what he's done to create a really strong balance between industrial policy as well as trade policy, makes it an ideal opportunity for companies like First Solar to establish manufacturing in India. And his commitment to ensuring domestic capabilities and ensuring his long-term climate goals and objectives with focus on energy independence and security.
Geeta Mohan joining us live from the US on the story. Geeta, you've been tracking this minute to minute with the CEOs, turn by turn meeting with the Prime Minister. Share with us a flavor of the kind of mood, the kind of interest and excitement building up with regards to engaging with India and investing in India.
Well, quite positive momentum, so to say, Abha, because we've seen in the past, and we've covered all the meetings when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, travels to the United States of America. The format always used to be business roundtable, meeting with the business community, various groups of business leaders from the United States of America and the Indian American community. This time it was a little different. What the Indian side did was identify certain key areas and sectors that they want to focus on in a post-COVID era, where the areas that are important for India should be looked into, and then identify the CEOs that Prime Minister Narendra Modi should meet. The meeting also was very interesting. There was a 5-minute briefing before every meeting, and then the meeting between the CEO and the Prime Minister took place. All the meetings of the 5 CEOs were on a one-on-one basis rather than roundtables and community meetings. So there was very specific focus on the area, the sector. The briefing spelled out exactly what India was looking at, and the CEOs spelled out exactly what they were looking at from India. So very fruitful, constructive conversation, I should say, but we'll have to wait and see how to take it forward. We've seen a lot of conversations in the past as well, Abha, when it comes to talking about and showing intent in investing in India, but in terms of translating that into real money coming into India has not been thus far as positive or as advantageous to India, and so we'll have to wait and see how the conversations move forward from intent to action.
All right, Vishesh Chandok also joining us, CEO Grant Thornton. He's with us tonight to give us a perspective on some of those conversations as well. Geeta, let's put that question to him. Vishesh, thanks for joining us. What are your key takeaways coming in from the commentary that's coming out of those meetings? A lot of the CEOs talking, particularly Qualcomm and Amon, talking about, yes, looking at India as a manufacturing hub and also one for global exports. We've had discussions on the liberal drone policy and looking at perhaps also that sector more closely going forward. We also had some commentary come in on that, and the PLI schemes have been a big hit. But like Geeta said, intent or action, what can we expect?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Abha. Good to see you after a long time. I think wonderful to see the intent behind the visit. I think it's unprecedented for a prime minister to meet business leaders one-on-one like he's done. It's usually meeting state leaders like that and a roundtable at best, a breakfast session with CEOs, and it was delightful to see those one-on-one interactions with CEOs. Clearly, we know our prime minister means business, and he's got a script to talk about, to sort of back that.
Yes, Anjani Kumar also joining us, partner at Deloitte. Anjani, great to have you with us. Let me get your perspective, referring to some of the challenges perhaps that US companies still find in India. What would be top of that list? The government has taken a lot of steps to try and improve the ease of doing business. We've seen some critical reforms as well over the last few weeks and months. What could really help to draw further investment in?
Thanks for inviting me to the show, Abha, and a very good evening to you and your viewers. I think we've recently done a survey with about 300 senior US executives of MNC firms, and one of the things that comes across as a challenge that they see in investing in India is what they call institutional stability. So predictability of taxation, predictability of regulatory reforms, judicial redressal system, the time that it takes for judiciary to take action. I think that is the single most important impediment that we've heard US executives talk about investments in India. And if you look at the positive side, the thing that attracts most is the growth that the Indian economy offers and the skill sets that we have. So that's something that they are doing a trade-off against with respect to the institutional stability versus the growth and the opportunity to take a disproportionate share of the Indian consumer mindset.
Got it. Vishesh, it was interesting the mix of CEOs that he met addressing segments like telecom, digital India, whether it's manufacturing, solar, defense, very key segments of industry that were handpicked and selected this time around. Again, what is the kind of potential of investments you foresee when it comes to some of these pockets? Blackstone, Stephen Schwarzman talking about how they've already invested 60 billion and, the numbers are going to be as huge over the next 5. Qualcomm also a significant player here.
Stephen Schwarzman was one of the last CEOs I met before we went into lockdown. I remember on his visit to India. I think it's a very carefully picked lot of diverse industries, also industries where he's got what I was just saying before we concluded the last segment, a very good script, a very good story to talk about, right? Our renewables investments grown from 26 gigawatts in 2015 to over 100 gigawatts now. Well, it's well on its way to 450 gigawatts by 2030. Telecom, very good story again. The government going against the script with what they've done for the industry. Of course, extremely critical for rolling out that digital India aspiration in our country. And he talks about that strategic clean energy partnership that he wants to achieve on this trip. He talks about that emerging tech collaboration that he wants to further with this trip. I think the main agenda of this trip will be to establish that personal relationship. Right. I think business can be done once you have that personal relationship. This is the first in-person contact with the new president. There are many geopolitical strategic issues to discuss, and I think that will be central to his agenda on this trip. And once we start discussing that with this shift post the pandemic, geography is now history, as somebody once famously said. Geography is now history, and now is the opportunity to actually think about how can those high value jobs happen from India. And we're already seeing that at Grant Thornton. Many of our high value jobs now we are executing from India versus the traditional thinking of needing people spread in local offices and geographies.
All right. Well, it's going to be a very action-packed trip, and Geeta Mohan in Washington Live will be bringing us all of those latest updates all through the night. Anjani, Vishesh, thanks so much for joining us. Bulls on a tear yet again. The euphoria in the stock markets continued lifting benchmarks to fresh life highs on Thursday. Short sellers forced to cover on their weekly F&O expiry day amid positive cues from the global market. Sensex was up 1.63% to close at 59,885. Nifty up 276 points or 1.5% at 17,823. The Bank Nifty ended the session higher by 827 points as well. Bajaj Finserv, Hindalco, L&T, Tata Motors, Coal India, some of the top gainers today, 3 to 4% gains coming in. HDFC Life, Dr. Reddy's, JSW Steel, Tata Consumer and ITC, the top losers. A mixed bag completely. The star performers were the real estate stocks. The S&P Realty Index gained 8.7% to hit a fresh 52-week high, with Godrej Properties, Brigade, Oberoi Realty all hitting all-time highs. The response to the Bharat's Defence and Space Technologies IPO, which closed today, has been spectacular. The issue was subscribed a whopping 304 times. The retail part of the issue was subscribed 113 times, while the non-institutional investors portion was subscribed 928 times. The issue has a price band of 165 to 175 rupees, and the company is raising 171 crore rupees. Around 500 employees of a company turning crorepatis. Does that boggle your imagination? Well, that's exactly what a Chennai-based tech company has achieved. Freshworks on Wednesday became the first Indian software as a service company or SaaS company to be listed on the New York-based NASDAQ stock exchange, ending the day by being valued at around 1 lakh crore rupees.
While Prime Minister Narendra Modi was being greeted by fans on his arrival in Washington, D.C., a different kind of celebration was happening in New York City. Chennai-based Freshworks was being listed as the first Indian software-as-a-service company on the NASDAQ.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nelson. Today is the realization of a major milestone for Freshworks. So I feel like an Indian athlete who has won the gold medal at the Olympics.
The listing was at $43.50 before the share surged 32% to close at $47.55, valuing the company at a whopping $13.4 billion. 76% of the company's employees hold its shares. The listing created 500 crorepatis in Chennai, all employees of Freshworks who hold shares of the company. 70 of them are below the age of 30. It was a dream come true for the founders of the software company, which was started in 2010. 11 years later, it has a large presence in San Mateo, the heart of California's Silicon Valley.
We are showing the world what a global product company from India can achieve. The fact that we are doing it first in the US markets, here with NASDAQ, it's truly amazing. I would like to say today is day zero for Freshworks all over again, and the beginning of so much more.
The co-founder, originally from Trichy, shares a common bond with lakhs of Tamilians. He's a die-hard fan of Thalaiva, a fact reflected in his homage to his idol. In his blog, after a visit to Rajinikant's residence with his family. Even the plan for his public issue was codenamed Project Superstar. Entire theatres in Chennai have been rented out for his employees to watch Rajini starrers like Kabali and Linga. The prospectus filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission mentions Rajini as the co-founder's Manasiga Guru, roughly translated as mentor. Ironical, given that Girish Mathrubootham has first turned Thalaiva, or the top leader for the legion of his fans and employees. Bureau Report, Business Today.
In a shock move, Google has dragged the Competition Commission of India to court over leaks of confidential reports. The US-based company moved the Delhi High Court against a leak of a CCI confidential report on an investigation against Google. In a statement, Google said it had not yet received or reviewed the confidential report and that the breach of confidence impairs its ability to defend itself. The investigation was being carried out by the Director General against Google's alleged unfair trade practices. Reports last week said the investigation had found Google guilty. Talks on a comprehensive trade deal with the UAE have begun today. The two-day negotiations are expected to result in an agreement which would double the trade between the two countries in the next 5 years. The Emirates are India's third largest trading partner, and a new trade agreement between the two is expected to remove customs duties on several goods as well as ease norms to boost trade in services and increase investments. This is expected to double the business between the two nations to $100 billion a year from the current $59 billion. Business Today TV's managing editor Siddharth Zarabi spoke exclusively to UAE's Foreign Trade Minister Ahmed Al Zayudi about the benefits to the two countries.
We have started the official talks on CEPA, and we really hope that it's going to be completed and finalized the negotiation within 3 months. We already engaged in so many ICT and communications lately. We have a huge plan to invest $7 billion in the agribusiness here in India, and we're going to continue exploring those sectors. It's going to add value and create jobs, as well as bring more commodities to the market and to the bigger region. We in the UAE offer a pro-business environment with progressive regulations and regulatory framework. These for sure includes the low taxations, 100% foreign ownership, and a majority of sectors. And we do have a very strong legal system that protects capital, IPs, trademarks, and low custom tariffs, zero income, capital gain tax, and open economy. We're very open, modern, and tolerant society where more than 190 nationalities coexist peacefully in the UAE, and we're seeking to attract and retain the world's brightest talents, and are in the process of overwhelming modifying and revamping the whole visa system. So we do have introduced a new gold and green and freelancer visa, which is going to be more flexible for those businesses to come and settle down and operate from the UAE. So we do believe that the numbers are speaking for themselves. Today we do have around 3.5 million Indian nationals who call the UAE their homes, and we do have a huge number of companies. We're talking about almost 4,365 companies that have cover a diverse number of sectors, from real estate, so retail, manufacturing to media, and include some of our nation's most remarkable entrepreneurial success stories.
Apple releasing its latest lineup of the iPhone 13 on the 24th of September, but Business Today TV's Ayush Alwadi had the much anticipated handset a day before. He tells us what's new, what's special, what's desirable about the new iPhone.
The new iPhone 13s are here. They have an A15 chip, better battery life, and of course, a much better camera system. But you know all of that already, so let's cut to the chase. Well, this is the box, without the plastic wrapping of course, and this is the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Mini unboxed for you. This is the iPhone 13 Mini, a smaller version of the iPhone 13. This is the iPhone 13 Pro, a smaller version of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Both pack a lot of punch, but the million-dollar question is, should you upgrade to this lineup? Well, it all comes down to the camera. Yes, the Pro models come with a 120Hz ProMotion display, and of course there's a new cinematic mode that everyone's talking about. But is that just a gimmick, or are they actually ready to take on professional cameras? Let's find out. So there's good news and not so good news. The good news is that all iPhone 13 models, that's the Mini, the 13 Pro and Pro Max, come with cinematic mode. The not so good news is that the execution is subpar at best. But there's a caveat there. This is the first time that Apple is actually introducing a feature like this. So when you're talking about adjusting focus and the blur around the edges, when we tested it out, well, there were issues and sometimes the blur was not so perfect, but this is a first generation implementation. It's only going to get better. For now, it's locked at 1080p at 30 FPS. Cinematic mode would need a lot more. But my bet is that this is only the start of something very special. All in all, if you own something like the iPhone 11 or an older 4G compatible iPhone, then it might make sense to upgrade to the iPhone 13 lineup, especially the Pro models, because these are the best in the business yet again. But if you shelled out the big bucks only recently on the 12 or the 12 Pro Max, then you're good to go for another few years before you actually shell out the big bucks on another upgrade. Stay tuned to Business Today for more such coverage.
And moving on to our daily cryptocurrency price check brought to you by CoinDCX. The declining risk of the Evergrande crisis in China has improved investor morale. Prices of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin stabilized on Thursday after showing weakness the past few days. The 5 cryptocurrencies that we track regularly traded higher as of today evening, while Bitcoin rose by 2.8%. Ethereum had gained 4.7%. Other coins including Ripple, Polygon and Tron also rose higher as the risk of a loan default by the real estate giant in China reduced. Overall, major cryptocurrencies gained up to 17% on low-level buying. That's where we leave it on the show today. Thanks so much for watching.